Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Tarot for Our Times. I'm Sarah, your medium on the go, and I know it's been a couple of months since I have posted any videos, and I'll tell you what's been happening. There's so many, well, first of all, the news has been absolutely so overwhelming with the scandal du jour that it really has been pretty much overwhelming. And as I watch other readers on YouTube, I realize that we're pretty much coming to similar conclusions about what's going on. So I've pretty much decided to take a whole different focus on this and not get into the I'm sure that might come into it, but my focus will not be on the prediction as much as looking at what all of this means to us, like psychologically and spiritually. And I have been racking my brains pretty much as to how can I change the focus on this. And I stumbled across a channel called the Quantum Shift Channel. And it pretty much talks about, where there have been a lot of videos about we're evolving into the higher form, the 5D consciousness and all that sort of thing. They take a little bit of a different view about this. And what they're saying is that it's moving into the shift in the energies is moving into who we really are. And it means shedding off who we have been in order to do this. And it is partially the higher self kind of thing as we go into a higher form of consciousness. But it's a little bit more involved than that. So they, of course, are trying to sell a book at the end, but I think that these videos are very, whether you buy the book or you don't buy their book, these videos are very valuable, and you can kind of fine-tune your meditations to pretty much what they're talking about. But the one interesting thing that they are saying is that 26 is going to be a very different year. And that we're already moving into that consciousness. That's why on my thumbnail I do have the death card with all the players, with most of the players that have been very impactful. And I see that 2026 is going to be the year of the death card. Now that is a card I have been using quite a bit, and it has been coming up in these readings quite a bit, and it really is, as I've said in previous videos, it's pretty much about the slow evolving movement of shedding off what we no longer need in order to make it over to those pillars of transformation with the sun shining through. And to me that is reaching the level of consciousness. And I suppose as we scratched our head a year ago, like how could this election have happened, that it's probably something about we really need to see the dark side again. I guess January 6th wasn't quite enough of that, so we guess we need some more. And it's the whole Trump phenomena is really taking a walk onto the dark side, and definitely dealing with that, which I believe will probably, when we get through this, and I do believe that we will, it's going to institute change in laws about what presidents can and cannot do. So what I want to do now with my new video, taking a little bit of a new focus, is taking these different events and seeing how this reflects on us and what we're going through and how we're going to evolve to the different level. Now, I've seen a lot of people on this platform who have been talking about, oh, the big shift. The big shift is coming. Well, we're all at different stages of development. So then maybe the shift is going to be happening at different times for different people. And I will say that in listening to some of these videos, it's kind of like this magical thinking, like, oh, and of course where the planets line up is significant, but it's going to be like, oh, everything in the universe is going to line up in a certain way, and then poof, magically we've gone from the 3D up to the 5D, which I'm still trying to understand what that is. But on this quantum shift channel, they did go through all the different levels of consciousness. I know I'm going to have to listen to that again. But it talks about, before you go on to the next one, it's like you've got to shed the more negative parts of the ego. You've got to shed this. You've got to shed that. And so what I'm going to be doing in these readings is to take these different events and see how that reflects on our lives. I've already done this to a certain extent with talking about the toxic masculinity and the why this is not, it's, whatever's bad for our society is bad for our own personal growth. So the energies are changing quite a bit, and I'm a big believer in what we do with them is depending on the choices that we make. So it's about stepping into our authentic selves. And the death card is important because this represents, and I watch Midas Touch and, all the offshoots of that. And a lot of the titles of these videos are pretty much another nail in the coffin, basically. And it's pretty much about how this regime is dying. This is why the death card is important on so many different levels. So the regime is dying. Trump is in really, really bad health, and I will have to say, I will try to remember to put this in the comments about Whimsey. Put out a very good video, I think it was just the other day, about how she and a colleague, she's a naturopath, how she and a colleague did kind of like this blind study looking at Kank's, different systems. And they said well, we're all dying, I know that, but that it's serious. And I'm saying, and she said this, and I'll say this too. Of course, it's for entertainment purposes only, because a lot of this is speculation and intuition from what we've been able to observe. But she also talked about the stages of grief that MAGA is going through, because their leader he's fading. I mean, almost on a daily basis, he's fading. So we will look into the spiritual aspects of this and how it affects us. Now, they're going through the denial, like, oh, he's really not that sick, to bargaining, and and the whole thing. And when it comes to, and they're getting, actually, when it finally he's gone in one way or another, it will be acceptance. And so the acceptance part is kind of like they're sort of looking to see who is they've got Vance, but I don't see them holding on to him. I think he's just going to be a placeholder for them until they can find some other Nazi. But at any rate, what I want to take a look at, I wanted to kind of do just a big overview, because there's so much. There's Epstein, there's Happy Hour, Hegseth, there's so much, with him attacking those boats. There's the whole thing with the Democrats need to grow a set, and fortunately they are growing a set. Little by little they are. So there's that whole big picture. So I just want to take a look at the whole big picture to see what's going on, and just take a look at it with the what the whole thing means, and then I'm probably going to be breaking it down into different components as time goes on. So I think that maybe perhaps my spreads will get a little bit more simple than they have in the past. So I'm feeling drawn to maybe drawing an oracle card, doing some oracle cards to see the ending. And as far as the whole prediction things for the new year, I don't quite know how I'm going to do that. The only thing I can say is that we do have one foot. I do believe that the quantum shift channel that says we do have one foot into 2026 already. So at any rate, so I'm going to pick a couple of oracle cards to see the how we're leaving this year and going into the next year. So we have listening as the year comes to an end. I think as many get as overwhelmed as they are, there's still some action going on. There are demonstrations popping up all the time, but I think now that people are just listening and waiting for the next shoe to drop actually on a daily basis. So we have this for the end. So they're listening. It's listening to not only what are we going to do as a part of this whole thing, but maybe starting to listen to ourselves. And on the other end of the spectrum, the year ending with, they're beginning the new year with, interesting to say, love. And this is not like the Lover's card in the tarot deck, because there's only her and a few she's sitting in a lovely nature spot with some birds and things. So I'm going to say, since there's only this solitary figure, it's about self-love. So this is pretty much about keeping our own house in order, pretty much, of finding some self-esteem and knowing that all of this sort of thing that's going on right now is that it's kind of like we have to take care of ourselves. This has been a really rough year, so we will be going into, maybe we'll have a Christmas break from all of the drama, although I'm sort of doubt it. But I think what this is saying is that we need to really do things for ourselves. It's not like hiding away from world events, but knowing it's kind of getting our own house in order. Yeah, the listening as we end, and this could be listening to our inner voice. There's a lot to process from this. So at any rate, so where are we at? Where are we at right now? As far as everything that's going on, and it's a lot of it is very, very dark stuff, but there's a lot that's falling apart with this whole thing too, which is part of the death card. So let's see, where are we at right now? Well, isn't this interesting? This is a very big lesson of what's going on, because the Fool in reverse is talking about as the regime members are getting desperate. They are doing some foolish things. So I think the thing is that instead of us getting into real panic and despair, is that maybe by seeing people like, killing fishermen in Venezuela in the, fishing boats that they don't even have enough they have enough gasoline to go out 20 miles and fish, and that's about, forget about carrying drugs to other lands. So maybe this is giving us an opportunity to see is in all of the chaos that we make sure that we don't do foolish things with our life. So it's time for real self-examination. So then the energy crossing that is the Six of Wands in reverse, because the energy is like you're only losing. So what this reflects on us is that as we go out and protest, to not be, to not let them, because there is a danger. This has been they've been talking about that, not to get into the losing situation of being triggered. Do not let the trolls trigger you to do anything foolish. I mean, they're just waiting for this. So this is a cautionary tale. It also means, it's also talking about not doing foolish things like, you don't have much money, so let's put it on crypto or whatever, pyramid scheme. You're probably better off just take the $2 and go out and buy a Powerball ticket instead of putting your life savings into some foolish thing, because the tech bros are doing that. So let's see what we've got going. Here we go again. In the past, it says like in the past, learn from the foolish things that we have done. And we have, back in my generation, it's in the 60s that, well, I keep thinking of the 68 riots in Chicago, because there were some of the bad guys that provoked people and started trouble. And unfortunately, people bought into that. So beware that they may be trying things with that. But it's also, even on a daily life level, on the holidays with relatives gathering, do not let the drunken uncle with the red hat on trigger you. It's like trying to argue with the trolls that are from Nigeria that have wearing Steeler hats on their profiles. It's that kind of thing. It's also about, I also want to say that with this bad economy, it's going to be time for people to start negotiating with bill collectors and employers and all this sort of thing. And it's like, don't do anything foolish by up and quitting your job or whatever, that it's time to make people realize what either a valuable customer or employer that you are. So this would kind of prevent you from doing this and this to get a double fool in reverse. And I always look at this as like, it's good to be wise with money, but don't hang on too tight. You're going to have, if you have a few extra dollars that you could spend to advance yourself in some way, is to but it's also saying be careful about how you use your money. Like, don't be this, but then don't, this is the other extreme of just holding on to, and it's about holding on too tight to a lot of old stuff that you don't need to hold on to anymore. So let's see, what's the next one? Okay, so in opposition to this, we have the King of Wands, which is talking about really be picky about your leaders. And instead of, kind of like, and I do this all the time, instead of ranting and raving about how ineffectual the corporate Dems are, it's look to the leaders that inspire you. To me, they're like Bernie Sanders and Jasmine Crockett and other people like that. And I also say that New York has sent a message, by electing Mondami, which goes against all the establishment stuff. So, you know, if you look at this guy here, unlike kings and other decks, he's kind of young. It's just like, whoa, all of a sudden he just went from being knight to a king. I think that this kind of looks a little like Mondami too. So it's kind of like looking to the younger, inspiring, and it doesn't have to be chronologically, like people with new ways of thinking, like Bernie Sanders. He's in his 80s, but he's got a mentality of someone, a younger person. Okay, so then I think I'm feeling like I want to use this deck. So with all of this in the past, I want to go back to the beginning of the year when, you know, then we had the Doge boys with the little nuts guys. Okay, so then we have, oh, here. This is going back to the big time betrayal we felt. This is a many-fold. This is the betrayal we felt by, first of all, the loss of the election and all the chaos that followed. This is also feeling that, you know, as much as I think that Biden got done, feeling like betrayed that he didn't pick an attorney general that could have prevented all this, that really would have gone after Trump and the whole January 6th thing. So that's a big betrayal. But the swords also represent, this is the end. You know, tens are the end. And swords are about thoughts. That there's a lot to be learned about this. And I think the recent elections have taught us that. But in our own lives, too, is it's time to learn the lesson from all of these betrayals. And it all comes down from, you can't be too nice when you've got a really formidable foe. You can't, I mean, it's, you know, you can't be stupid and foolish about how you deal with them. But on the same, you know, at the same time, you've got to learn to assert yourself and to learn to play the game that they do. You can be all nice and everything when you take you know, when you win the election, or else you've won what you set out to win. So coming into the present, where we are now, which is like, I suspect that after when I upload this whole thing, that there'll be some new drama. Okay. In the present, we have, it's kind of like it's time to kind of calm down and to, you know, to take a look inside of that. It's interesting that this cup is covered. I mean, sometimes some people look at it as opening Pandora's box. I see that in if it came up reversed, but I'm saying that sometimes you need to take the lid off a little bit and see where things are really at, and being realistic about them, and being, of course, being good and nurturing to yourself, that to take a look fearlessly of what is going on in there and deal with it. So this year has been being very realistic about, yes, they're trying authoritarianism. So what are we going to do about it? I think the masses of people are probably been doing a very decent job about that, and hopefully our lawmakers will, some of them have been following suit, others haven't, but we have primaries, and so let's see, so we're going a little bit into the future. We have the Queen of Pentacles in reverse, and this is the Homeland Security. It's a part of the taking the lid off. It's interesting that we have a queen, is to realize that we are living in unsecure times. And it's very important, I think, to let the rest of the world know, like, hey, I am not on board with dismantling NATO. I'm not on board with letting Russia carve up Ukraine. And to make that, and we have Facebook and all of these things with people all over. I have friends all over the world, and you got to keep reminding them that's who's running the country. That isn't me. And also to in your own lives of saying, I may be around a lot of crazy, dysfunctional people, but maybe just because that's in my family or people I used to run around with, that is not me. To gain a little bit more of security, I'm in the sort of like this ocean of unsecure thing, but that isn't me. And then in that way, you start drawing like people. So as we go a little bit more into the future, I would say on the current events level, this is really the U.S. just screwing off our allies like EU, Mexico, Canada. This is the breaking of alliances, and on our own personal level is, which we don't need to do. So we have to learn about who do we need to be around and who don't we need to be around. Sometimes it isn't as quite as clear cut as like, well, if they're MAGA, I can't be bothered. For the most part, probably yes. But then there might be special cases where that is not necessarily the case. And it is about, as far as the journey of the death card, it's time to let go of a lot of partnerships that no longer serve us. I would say this is also representative of people that voted for him because inflation or whatever bullshit thing they had, and that they've gone. There's been a big FAFO factor, and a number of people have peeled off, and I'm sure that some of them are probably saying, what is it in my psyche that made me go for this in the first place? So that's something to continue. That's something, there's a lot of soul searching, and that, in the death card, if you look at the thumbnail, there's a lot of people that death marches, right, he leaves them by the wayside because they're no longer a healthy alternative to the lifestyle. So that's part of the journey. And a lot of it is, I think what the end of this year about is really getting rid of a lot of old people and ideas that are no longer healthy for us. And it isn't necessarily political, although that does play a part in it. But it's kind of like, well, they're still so dysfunctional. They haven't grown. It's just pulling me down and making me codependent and all this kind of crap. So there we go. Okay, so moving right along here. So I think this is kind of like how, in all of this, how we see ourselves is the Knight of Wands. That interesting, just charging along, lighting up kind of like lighting up the night, and making people aware that maybe charging through that a little bit too. It's one thing to inspire, but you don't want to burn it down. So I think a lot of us are seeing ourselves as, we're, inspiring, enlightening people, whether you go to protests, whether you go to, you do it online or whatever. But I also think that it's how we maybe trying to see ourselves in our own personal lives. So let's see how others see us. Okay, how perfect. And this is true. The way the rest of the world is seeing us is that we are that third dagger, which is, the U.S. as a whole, which is betrayal and messing up alliances that we have had for, almost 250 years that are now, that we're just now flushing down, and interfering with world peace. This is not helping at all. So as far as our raising in consciousness, we could say, well, I may, like back here saying I'm, not on board of what the regime is saying, but then you have to look and ask yourself, am I really getting my business into other people's lives where it doesn't belong? Then that can really hold you back. If I've been, played any kind of part in a betrayal of people and heartbreak. So this is a big part of it. So I want to draw a concluding card for this very big picture, and then I'm probably going to be breaking it into smaller parts as I do future readings. So our concluding card is very worried. This is a card of insomnia, and it's also, this kind of ties in with everything, because what this is saying is that while we need to be aware of the dangers that we are going through, this is like to be aware of the doom scrolling and to making things worse than they are. So while we do need to be aware, we cannot be making things worse in our minds that keep us up at night. And this could be with our personal finances. This can be with relationships with people. And it fits in with this god-awful government that we have. And allowing, and this is what I think was I think it was on a Midas Touch that I heard that, with ICE running amok and bullying everybody, they're trying to instill fear in us. And we cannot allow that to happen. We cannot allow that to happen in our interpersonal relationships, too. So this is a very good conclusion. So let's see what we have here is the energy of that, and that is the sun in reverse, which is saying, they're trying to hide the truth, but the sun always comes out in the end. It always peeks through on the cloudiest days. I've said this so many times. If it didn't, we'd be in complete darkness on a rainy day. So the truth always does come through. They've tried this since the dawn of time. It never works. It never works out. It just never does. And this is, as far as the Epstein files and all of that goes, no matter what they try to redact or hold back, it always comes out, which I think will be the downfall. And I do think that it's time that we need to be very part of this raising of consciousness and stepping into our authentic selves is to be very honest with ourselves, because the truth does come around. So just take a quick look at this justice. This is perfect because this is very, very slow in coming. It's kind of like this guy has gotten away with murder now, practically, literally. And every time we think something's going to happen, it doesn't. But justice in reverse is saying justice will come on the universe's time. It may not come fast for us. And I always use the John Gotti. How many years did John Gotti dodge? Lots of stuff it's going to be happening. This is a lot of things are going to start to happen very, very quickly as we get into the new year, which may start to flip this right side up. And in the end, I think that what this is saying about things slowing up, and that there's possibly some kind of a message of peace, that things could be coming. But at the same time, it's a cautionary tale about being realistic and don't over romanticize or idealize things. But this is a very good signal of it. And it also tells us that while it's important to express ourselves, to hold the cup steady, don't let things get too carried away, or else we end up being the fool in reverse. So I think a lot of what this is saying is that, and history has told us, hey, we've been through this before. We have been through this before. In fact, in looking at this Facebook memory thing, I came across, I think it was like last year or the year before, Doris Kearns Goodwin. It was in an interview and saying, we've been through this with the Civil War. We've come through. We've been through this prior to World War II, and it's been just about as bad as it is now, and that we will get through it. And that's the one message of the Three of Swords, is that we do get through it, but there may be some heartbreak, but we do get through it. And listening to people, that's why I say I encourage you to listen to people like her, because and to Rachel Maddow, who's done extensive research about the fifth column Nazis. I always think of the house, that wonderful Nazi noir, The House on 92nd Street. I mean, which was based on FBI stories of the late 1930s and before we entered World War II. We have had this kind of thing lurking in the background, and we have gotten through it. So I also say that in our own personal lives, I guess we're just so foolish that we have to be through the darker times before we go to that next level of consciousness. But we have the choice as to whether we're going to learn these lessons or not. So I'm pretty excited about doing this as a new focus, and there may be a forecast of what could be happening, but what I will do is that it will be in the context of it having to do with our own growth, as far as like whether I think is Kank's going to croak this year for entertainment purposes only, or he'll be leaving. But that will be in relationship to the forces of evil and that leave. And so what do we do? What do we do with that? That would be that sort of thing. So at any rate, I am looking forward to doing this new thing, and whether I get a lot of views or not, I'm just tired of worrying about that. If you want to see it, fine. But I'm kind of excited about this whole new turn of events. So with that, I'm going to sign off. So I'm glad to be back, and take care, everybody. Bye.